Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey guys, before we get the video started, I just want to let you guys know I have a Discord now. If you guys want to join, there's going to be a link in the description of the video, as it will appear in future videos. It's free to join. Just come on in. You can come hang out. I'll be in there from time to time, but a lot of the time it'll be the admins. Absolutely everybody is welcome as long as you can adhere to the rules. Hope to see you guys there. Welcome to PlayLoad. This is about half of my video game pickups for the month of November 2018. I know it's supposed to be all of them, but this is a little weird for two reasons. First, at the very end of October, I went out to Blackpool in the UK for a convention called Play Expo Blackpool, which I was a guest at, which was a great convention. I had a really good time there, and thanks again to everybody who came out for that convention. But because of the timing, I was unable to include the pickups I got there in last month's PlayLoad video, which makes sense. Those pickups will be in this video. However, at the exact same time, at the very end of this month, just a couple of days ago at the time I record this, I was in Tokyo, Japan for a completely different thing that I got sent to. And I made the most of that by going around and picking up as much stuff as I possibly could at chains like Hard Off and Book Off. And yes, everybody loves Hard Off. The name is really, really funny. We all know. As is tradition, I tend to make videos about Hard Off and Book Off because I just love the content there. And it's just that way you get more time to focus on the individual items. And it always just blows people's minds to see that much stuff, Japanese stuff, especially that cheap. So to keep this video shorter, despite the fact that I'm rambling on at the beginning, I figured that would just be a good way to do it, is just kind of splitting stuff up a little bit like that. So that's what's happening here. That Hard Off video in particular will come not too long after this video. So let's get started here. Again, first thing I did was I was in Blackpool in the UK, and the first thing I got at the convention was this. This is a game called Mythmakers Super Kart GP for the PlayStation 2. This was donated to me by a guy named Timbo, who I actually did a little blurb for on, I believe it was his podcast. So again, hopefully that went well, and thank you again, Timbo, for this game. Now Timbo, which is his username, by the way. He knew that I have a soft spot for these Phoenix games. Now, Phoenix is a company that made a whole slew of crap for the PS2 and some stuff for the PS1, actually. They're barely video games, and in some cases, they're not video games. They're basically just interactive cinema. Like, they're just little handmade cartoon type of movies that are put on discs and then they're just considered games. I find them hilarious, and the only reason these were even allowed to be released, or I think it was in like 2009, Sony lost some control over their ability to have quality control over the PlayStation 2. And once that happened, and this only happened in Europe, by the way, it allowed anyone who wanted to make a PlayStation 2 game to be able to do so. As long as they paid for the publication fees, Sony had to put it onto a disc and stamp their name on it, which is exactly how you got this. And everything by Phoenix, because there's no way these would have passed real quality control standards. And this particular one is supposed to be a little like Mario Kart type of clone, but I've heard it's god-awful, which wouldn't surprise me at all. Again, anything with Phoenix on it, it's going to be bad. But that or Blast or Midas, those are the companies that were this, the stamp of crap. But yeah, anyway, he just gave this to me as part of that little collection there. So thank you, Timbo. Now, a PlayStation 2 game I actually did buy was this one. This is called DNA Dark Native Apostle. Never played it before. I did look into it. It is a European and Japanese exclusive. We never got it over here. It looked pretty neat, actually. It just looks kind of like a horror game, but with like a grid type of gameplay focus. I'm not really sure what to make of it just based on the box art, but it was only like $4, so I was like, that seems pretty cool. There's a lot of games that only came out in Europe and Japan for some reason on the PlayStation 2 that never got North American releases, so I typically like to get those because those aren't always the same as that, where they're just pure shit. A lot of the pure European exclusives for the PS2 are just pure garbage, but the ones where they share a Japanese release that usually at least are playable, and then you just happen to have an English-speaking variant. So yeah, this would be one of those such examples. For the PS1, I got a game that I've been wanted for quite some time. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this one. It's a game called Chaos Break. Now, Chaos Break is cool because it's basically a Resident Evil clone. As soon as that the original Resident Evil came out, a lot of people were trying to emulate the success. Chaos Break was essentially just another Resident Evil game made by a completely different company. I mean, you look at the screenshots on the back, I mean, it looks straight up like Resident Evil. Down to the inventory system, this little girl who kind of looks like Jill Valentine. This game also came out in Japan and again in Europe. We just never got it in North America. So typically, of course, when I'm in Europe to game hunt at all, logically, in case you haven't concluded it by now, I don't get stuff I can easily get at home. I get regional exclusives, or at least stuff that wasn't released here. Even if, like in these cases, they did come out in Japan, but I'd rather have the European version because then it'll at least be in English. This was kind of amusing when I got this because I don't remember exactly what this cost, but I remember I was chatting with a few people who watched my channel. Actually, one of them watched the channel which this is from, which is Beer and Board Games on Blame Society, and I'm actually in that artwork. I'm in the back. And one of the guys was a big fan of that, and he knew me from that. And we're all just chatting and hanging out. And they were asking if I picked any good games up or whatever. And I pointed at this table nearby and I was like, I want that, referring to Chaos Break. And I also want Marvel vs. Capcom for the Dreamcast, which wasn't for me. I was picking it up for a buddy. But I was like, I don't really want to pay what the guy's asking, like full price. And then one of the dudes is like, I'll take care of this. And he just goes over there. He points to the two games. He's like, how much is the price when they're together? And he basically talked the guy down, like, I think it was like 10 pounds. And at that point, it was like, all right, I can't pass on that. That's a pretty good deal. So yeah, I got this for a pretty good price. I was pretty happy about that. And as soon as the seller like realized what he said, he was kind of like, because he kind of underdid it. But hey, cool. I got away with Chaos Break. Yay. Moving on, got for the Sega Mega Drive, a game that surprisingly never came out here, which is a Sega Genesis in North America, Captain Planet and the Planeteers. Yeah, this was a show that was never really that good, but it was at least pretty popular. It was an American show. And this is just like a platforming game of that franchise. I was really surprised to learn that this had not come out here. When I found out this was a regional exclusive, I was surprised, so I picked it up. And yeah, it's certainly an okay game, but just the fact that and it's in great shape, by the way. So yeah, I was just happy to have it. So there you go, Captain Planet and the Planeteers. I don't remember if it's region free, but I do remember that I did get it working, although I have a modified Genesis / Mega Drive. So yeah, I think it was region free, but I could be wrong. Now, one of the other things I'm always looking for anytime I'm in the UK, specifically the UK, not all of Europe, is Amiga CD32 games. Now, I'm sure a lot more of you now know what the Amiga CD32 is because James Rolfe, Angry Video Game Nerd, just dropped a video about it not too long ago. But for a long time, it was really an obscure console that no one had ever heard of. Now, I've had one for years. I've got the UK version. It did get a mainland Europe release, didn't do very well. It did decently in the UK, and it actually got a pitiful release in Canada, but never here in the US. The Canadian version is borderline impossible to find, although my buddy Scott, the Canadian, actually does own one, which was pretty cool, and we'll get back to that in a minute. But so yeah, when I'm in the UK, that's really the only place I can ever think to try and find Amiga CD32 games, because I have the console, I have a nice little collection for it, but if I can expand it, I will. Amiga CD32, man, it was a cool little console. It was very early 5th gen console. I think it was the second entry into the 5th generation. But either way, I wanted to pick up some titles for it, and I figured this convention would be the perfect place to do it. And I was right. There was only one dealer who was actually selling any games for it, but I picked up all the ones that I didn't have. This is Liberation, Arcade Pool. Now that's what I call games, which has 100 games for the CD32. I promise you this is garbage. This is probably like one of those NES type of 52-in-1 carts where it just has like 52 pieces of shit all in the same thing, just trying to sell it to you on the basis of, oh, there's 100 or 50 games or whatever in there. This is gonna be bad. Not that any of these are gonna be particularly good, just, you know. And then Nigel Mansell's World Championship, which is just like an early 5th gen, kind of late 4th gen really, racing game. So either way, it's just cool to have more stuff for the Amiga CD32, because like I said, as an American, you can't get it here. Like the only place you would get it is import shops that know exactly what it is. And then finding the Canadian versions, I've never seen any of the games. Even Scott, who owns one, has never seen one. And then even in mainland Europe, I've never seen them. It's, again, only the UK is the only place I've ever seen them in the wild. And even there, they're not common. They're usually in game stores, not just in like charity shops or anything like that. But yeah, so either way, got some games for it. Pretty happy about that. Now, one thing I was really looking for over there that I sadly got kind of screwed on, and my buddy Ben can attest to this, is I was really looking for Amstrad GX4000 games. I did a video on that console as well. It was a console that's kind of an NES competitor that really only came out in the UK. And finding games for it is borderline impossible. I think in the end, only something like 26 were released. I have 3. And when I went there the day before the convention when they were setting up, there was a guy who had like a bin full of them, just like loose carts. But I would have been like, dude, I would have bought those because they were mixed in with like Atari 2600 and all this stuff. So he probably didn't really want much, but you can't do anything about that the day before because that's, first of all, it's just unethical to try and buy stuff before the convention starts and all that. So you don't do it. It's against the rules. But sadly, when the convention was open, I scoured the place looking for that bin. Never found it. So before I got there, somebody else did. So congratulations to them. But yeah, I was trying to find games for that too. Anyway, doesn't matter. So that's it for my pickups from the convention. And again, thank you to everybody at the convention for having me as a guest. Of course, Tom from the Dreamcast Junkyard for everything he did. Andy for everything he did running the convention. It was a great time. And there's a bunch of panels that I did at that convention as well that have footage that's online. I believe the Dreamcast Junkyard hosted theirs. You can find footage of that stuff if you're interested. But that wasn't the end of things I actually got in the UK. Sega sent me a little care package, Sega Europe specifically. And they were cool enough they sent it to a buddy of mine, again, Ben, because he's also in the UK, and they knew I was coming, so they're just like, yeah, just send the stuff to Ben, and then Ben will bring it to you. I was like, yeah, that's fine, whatever. So yeah, this is the stuff that Sega gave me. Funny enough, this shirt is a Shenmue shirt that comes from Japan. One of my buddies at Sega was in Japan for a thing they were doing, and I asked him if he could pick this shirt up for me, and he did. And then when he brought it back to the UK, he shipped it to my buddy Ben, who then waited for me, and I brought it back to the US. So globe-trotting shirt here right now. But yeah, there you go. This is a new officially licensed piece of Sega Shenmue merchandise. Unlike the insert coin ones, which is licensed, Sega actually, I believe, was producing these themselves. So I definitely wanted to get it. Very, very cool. Even though I was just in Japan, I never actually saw these anywhere. So it's probably a pretty hard thing to find, but either way, I've got it, so happy about that. And the other things they gave me was kind of pretty surprising, pretty neat. This is a PS4 promo copy of Yakuza Kiwami 2, but this is just a straight up complete version of Yakuza Kiwami 2. It's just on the promo disc so that like review magazines and stuff like that could get access to it. This is more of an old concept. I was kind of surprised to see this was still around. But either way, yeah, that's what this is. And the other one they gave me, no big deal, Shenmue 1 and 2 PS4 promo copy for the PS4. Fucking awesome. Like, that's a hard variant to find, I promise you, down the road. So really happy to have that. I already have the Xbox One version of this that they gave me. Also, Sega hooked me up with that. So now I have both. Just really happy to have that. So thank you a lot to the guys at Sega for that stuff. Moving on, I got back to the States, and I was only here for a little bit before I actually went up to Toronto. Now, I went up to Toronto. Xbox Canada was doing a charity stream for Extra Life, which is basically a foundation where they try to raise money for kids with cancer so that they can buy them video games and things to kind of essentially distract them. I was informed that if I was there, that might help, whatever. But of course, they couldn't, you're not going to spend money to bring me there when you could spend the money on them. Logical. So what ended up happening is my buddy Scott, the Canadian, who I mentioned before, with the Amiga C32, he was cool enough to put me up at his place for a few days. And then Shane Lewis, Re-Res TV, I'm sure a lot of you guys know, he put me up at his place for a couple days. And Shane was also on the stream, so he brought me into the stream. It was really more Shane's thing, but they welcomed me there, and I paid for it with out of pocket because I thought it's a good cause. Let's go help him out. So yeah, so I got to go up there, and I know we raised some money. I hope it helps out. So awesome. And I didn't really pick up anything there. We went to a bunch of stores, but I'm almost tapped out on North American stuff for the most part. But in this case, just one random thing that I got. This is from Shane. He actually gave me this. This is a Super Mario Switch controller, specifically the Bowser Edition by Power A for the Nintendo Switch. It's a wired, Pro controller alternative for the Nintendo Switch, and this one's, they're licensed and everything. They're not made by Nintendo, but they're licensed by them. The Super Mario themed edition specifically for Bowser. He actually did a review of this controller, literally this exact one that's in my hands. So you can watch that if you're curious. But yeah, he was cool enough to just give me that. So thank you very much to Shane. But that was it. That's all I got for stuff while I was in Toronto. Now, amusingly, while I was in Toronto, Scott and I were walking around, I think it was like a Walmart or something. No, Great Canadian Supercenter or Superstore, whatever it is. And we were looking at the stuff, and Just Dance had just come out for the Wii and the Wii U. And we were just kind of like, dude, it's amazing that that game's still coming out there. So I actually texted a buddy of mine at Ubisoft, and I was like showing him, I'm like, And I was just like, I can't believe you guys are still doing this. And she's like, yeah, sometimes, I don't know. You know? she just kind of found it funny. She said, like, are you looking for him or something? Like, you know, I was like, nah, just saying it was funny. Anyway, so I get back home to the States and I've got a package from Ubisoft and I open it up and what's inside is Just Dance 2019. She was cool enough to actually send me the physical Wii U copy of the game just for free, just to have, nothing special. So thank you very much to my buddy at Ubisoft, who probably would prefer I didn't say her name. But yeah, so that was awesome. So they got me that much closer to the complete set. I mean, odds are, guys, this is the last real release for the Wii U. I know Limited Run Games is still going to be putting out their own game, but that won't see a major retail release. That's going to be limited to their site, obviously. I don't know if anybody else is going to do it. I mean, it's possible Ubisoft will put out Just Dance 2020 next year, but who knows? You know, I have no idea. But and I don't think Japan's going to release anything else. I don't think Axiom Verge is ever actually going to make it unless that is the Limited Run Games game. But yeah, so this could potentially be the last like major retail game. So either way, I've got it. So thank you very much to Ubisoft. And speaking of other things that just randomly showed up, I got one of these. This is the M-Cable Gaming Edition, specifically the 6-foot edition. Now, if you guys have been watching me for a little while now, you'll know that I've talked about this cable quite a bit. This is an HDMI cable. I did a video on it. It's amazing. It has a special chip in it, a processor that basically creates an anti-aliasing effect for older content. I'm not gonna do the whole review here, but one of my biggest complaints with this cable was the length. It was that it was only 3 feet long. So the guys over at Marseille Inc., which is the company that makes this thing, they basically just sent me another one. They said, oh, this one's 6 feet, you know, enjoy. So thank you to them for doing that. But in talking to them, I worked out a couple of deals for you guys, in case you want it. You don't have to, of course. The first is, if you want, this cable is currently on sale. If you use my name as a coupon code, Adam4MCable, on their website, you'll get $30 off, which is pretty good. And I know what you're thinking, like, all right, Adam, are you getting a kickback from this or what? I'm like, no, I'm not making any money off of this shit. I'm probably stupid for that. I probably should be taking money, but no, I'm not. There's no money coming to it. I just really think this thing's awesome. And I want to share it with you guys because I feel like not enough people know about this thing. But again, you can watch my review for more information. But if you decide to buy it, I hooked you guys up with a code. I don't know how much longer that code will last, but at the time I make this video, it's still valid. The other thing is, on top of that, I also got them to agree to give away a couple of free units to you guys specifically. So the way you enter, if you want, is there's a tweet linked in the description of this video. It will take you to my Twitter, and all you have to do is follow me on Twitter, follow them on Twitter, like and retweet that exact tweet, and you're entered into the contest. You're free to write any comments or whatever you want. They don't matter. That's not going to matter. You can say like, Adam, I love your videos. I watched it forever. It's not going to make a difference in the decision process. I'm not even the one who picks the winner, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, so there's 2 people who will win M-Cables. The contest, I believe, ends on December 1st, so you got, at the time this video comes out, about a day or so. So go over there. And either way, thank you to the Marseille Inc. guys for sending me one of these again. Moving on, one thing I ordered but completely had forgotten about is there was a Kickstarter a while back for a project called 40 Winks. Now 40 Winks was a game that originally came out on the PS1 and was originally intended for release on the Nintendo 64. However, the N64 version had been canceled. A prototype of it leaked onto the internet at some point, and that's how people have kind of been trying it out. But there was a Kickstarter. These guys, I guess, got a hold of the source code, and with enough funding were willing to finish the game and give it a physical release. And I backed that. I thought that was cool, and it showed up. Here it is. This is a physical, completed version of 40 Winks for the Nintendo 64. As far as I know, this is the first indie release ever released for the N64, and that's what I thought made it worthwhile. Now, when it comes to the cartridge, you can tell this is an aftermarket cartridge. This does not feel legitimate. I already tried it. It does work. There's nothing weird about it that way. The front looks better than the back. The front part looks closer to a real part. The back doesn't. It feels like the plastic feels cheaper, doesn't say Nintendo on it logically. The label is different than the traditional Nintendo one. It straight up says this is not authorized by Nintendo. But that said, I mean, it'll work. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could swap the back out with a legitimate back Nintendo cartridge and make it feel more real. You could do that, of course. Probably won't, doesn't really seem to need it, but there you go, 40 Winks. It also came with this little card that has some sort of code number on the back. To be honest with you, I don't even remember what this is for, probably like music or box art or something like that, but yeah, I just wanted the loose card. So there you go, 40 Winks. Now, as I mentioned, I did get to go out to Tokyo again. And the majority of those pickups will be in the hard off video when that comes out. But there's a few things I thought you guys would enjoy seeing. So I will bring them out at the time of this video. However, I realized one of them is sitting here on the floor, so I have to bring that up to the table. My bad. But yeah, so let's get on with it. One of the things I wanted at first, well, okay, I didn't actually intend to get this, I should say. I should rephrase. When you go into a store in Japan, usually a convenience store, they'll have a whole magazine array just set up. And I always avoid those because I can't read Japanese, like there's nothing over there I'm gonna be interested in. And there's always the porn section, and there's always guys just standing there, just looking at the porn, just like, no problem. It's not socially weird over there. It's just guys just standing there like, what, I'm reading porn, what? Yeah, I'm reading it. But anyway, so they're there doing that. So I just never have a reason to go over there. But I'm hanging out with my buddy Fox, whose name will pop up a couple of times in this video, as well as a lot in the hard off video. My buddy Fox, we hang out a lot of the time when I get to go over there, because a lot of time it can coincide when he's going over there. And because he lives in South Korea originally. Awesome dude, I've mentioned it before, I've hung out with him before. He sends me some stuff because he can find cool stuff over there. And I know he sends a lot of stuff over to the Metal Jesus crew, over to Pat and Ian, etc. So he's a good dude, but I'm like the only YouTuber who actually has met him because I get to go out there from time to time. But anyway, so we're in this one store and he's looking at the magazines. He's like, dude, that magazine has a Dreamcast on it. Now, what does that say about me? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's got girls on it, that's cool. Wait, a Dreamcast, well, let's go over there. I know, make all the jokes you want, I'm aware. But anyway, so it's got a Dreamcast on it, so that gets my attention, right? So I'm like, all right, so I grabbed this magazine, and he's right, it does have a Dreamcast on it. I'm like, what's the deal? And then I remembered, oh right, it's the Dreamcast's 20th birthday in Japan, which was just a couple of days ago at the time this video comes out. So I looked inside just to kind of get a sense of like, you know, what was that like? And what kind of display or whatever did they have, and it was actually pretty cool. So I'm going to show you guys a couple of photos. Here we got, it says 2018 Sega Memorial Year, and it was just going over the fact this is the 20th anniversary. Now again, I can't actually read Japanese, but because I know the Dreamcast, I got a pretty good sense of what it's talking about. This is just talking about the release information from 98, 99, 2000, 2001, and then up to 2007, and like what kind of stuff was coming out. Brief history of the console, then it goes over different accessories and console variants and all sorts of things. Random accessories and what they did, things you probably didn't know, like did you know there's a Neo Geo Pocket Link cable? Of course we know that, or at least I know that, I made a video about it, but you know, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Then it's got their top 30 games, some of which I can tell offhand what they are because they're written in English, and other ones took me a while to figure out, and like I figured out they put Shenmue 2 as number 22 on this list. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? But then again, I am just a fan. So looking through, they also put Shenmue 1 as number 2, which, you know, everybody's entitled to their own opinions, of course. But not surprisingly, this didn't surprise me at all. Their number 1 is Sakura Wars 3, which, yeah, that game is like cocaine over there. Like, they love it. Like, yeah, they love the Sakura Wars stuff. I was just surprised they would put Shenmue 1 as the second game and Shenmue 2 at the 22nd game. But yeah, Sonic Adventure, they ranked 4th, Phantasy Star Online 3rd, other Sakura Wars at 5th, etc. But yeah, it's just pretty cool just to have this little retrospective and all that. They talk about different things the Dreamcast was doing or trying to do, different artwork, and all this other really cool stuff. Yeah, and then they talk about some games have like what's, you know, happened. Some of the games getting PS4 re-releases, specifically Shenmue here, Space Channel 5, and a few Virtual On, I think is one of them there. A few other things, and then a whole page about brand new Dreamcast merchandise for the 20th anniversary. Like there's a scale, there's a clock, an umbrella, a wallet, SD cards, hoodies, all sorts of shit. Then immediately it followed it up with a whole guide about Shenmue 1 and 2's re-release, which people keep asking, like, why did Shenmue come out so late in Japan as opposed to the rest of the world where it came out in August? Simple. They were just trying to time it with the 20th anniversary of the Dreamcast. There's no grandiose conspiracy. That was it. It was just to come out at the same time as the anniversary. So of course, it contains all the Shenmue 1 and 2 artwork and talks about that. So once both of those things were in the magazine, it sealed the deal. I was like, oh, I have to have that. That's just cool. So there you go. Picked up a Japanese gaming magazine. It was not the end of my print pickups though. The other thing I got was I was down in Yokosuka, which is where Shenmue 1 takes place, like in real life. But I've actually been there. This would be, what, my 4th time in Yokosuka? But yeah, I went down there and I picked this up. This is a guide map. Now, you guys might already be aware of this. if you're familiar with the whole guide map thing, a few months ago, they did these Yokosuka guide maps they were giving away in that area. There was two versions. There was a Japanese version, there was an English version. But that was more or less, they gave those out around this time last year to kind of just promote that Shenmue was coming back, even though it wasn't official yet. I guess they were just kind of gauging interest. So that was a little hot ticket item in the Shenmue community, as people were trying to get those. But now that the Japanese release of the game was right around the corner, they redid it with brand new artwork from the re-release, and then they only did a Japanese version. There is no English version of this same artwork variant, to my fellow Shenmue fans. So I picked up a few of these, some for some friends and stuff like that. But yeah, just a cool guide, officially, you know, produced Sega piece of merch about the actual area, which, by the way, is a very cool area. If you ever get the chance to go there, you really should. Now, with Shenmue in mind, I also picked up, this is the Japanese edition of Shenmue 1 and 2 for the PS4. Now they did not release it on the Xbox One there. Over there it is a PS4 exclusive. And this version is different, obviously, because this one only plays in Japanese. There is no English dub, no English audio. It is a more up-to-date version than the versions we had on discs. I don't think it's the final build, but it's like the second to final. It has like the next patch away or whatever. I think that's what this is. But again, no English audio or subtitles, which is unfortunate. I bought this one in stores over there. I pre-ordered the special edition. However, at the time I make this video, it has not shown up, which is annoying because I was really hoping to include it. So I guess you guys will see that later. But yeah, that'll be there. And then I have like every variant of the Shenmue re-release, which is awesome, even the Korean one. So definitely cool to get that. And to buy it in Japan on the day it came out was, I gotta say, really cool. That said, I got two other things here before we go. Both of these came from my buddy Fox, who I mentioned a moment ago. You have to understand, Fox is a huge fan of the Nintendo Switch, loves it. So he buys like tons of stuff for it. And when I got there, he just handed me this. This is Worms WMD for the Nintendo Switch by Super Rare Games, which is kind of like limited run games, but for Europe. And he just gave this to me and said, like, I ordered a copy and they sent me two for some reason, but they're not charging me for the second one, so you can just have this. So thank you very much to Fox for doing that. It's actually, Worms is actually a pretty cool franchise, so it's very cool. But the other thing he got me, which was something I requested that he go find, and I'm very happy to get this. This is Battle Garegga. Now, Battle Garegga for the PS4. Now, Battle Garegga originally was a Sega Saturn game, only released in Japan. It's a shoot 'em up and a pretty hard one to find over there. I've seen it a couple of times, but it's expensive, man. The cheapest I've ever seen it over there was about $180. Now, it got re-released, obviously, for the PlayStation 4 in all regions, or most regions, but in all those regions, it's digital, save one, South Korea. South Korea got a physical disc-based release of this game. And so since he lives there, I asked him if he can go find it. And he's like, yeah, sure. And he says that on the packaging and around where it was actually for sale, they make a big deal about physical only in South Korea. Like, this is a South Korean exclusive. This is a big deal here. So I was like, all right, well, either way, I knew I wanted it. So he picked it up for me. It's a cool set. It's a 2-disc set. The first disc is just a music CD, and the second one is the actual game. Of course, the game is region-free, so no problem there. And it's a shoot 'em up. I don't think language would be much of a factor in this. I don't know if you can play it in English, but you wouldn't really need to. It's a shoot 'em up. So yeah, Fox, thank you very much for finding that for me, because that was definitely one on my list. And that'll do it for this video, guys. Again, the next, well, I don't know if it's gonna be my next video, but there will be a video on Hard Off with all the pickups from that, and that's gonna be pretty cool. I think you guys are gonna like that. So once again, thank you to Fox. Thank you to the guys at Ubisoft and Marseille Inc., the Kickstarter dudes, Sega, well, let's show us that over here, but the guys at Retro Play Expo, Blackpool, Retro Play Blackpool, or Play Expo Blackpool. Sorry, I got all tongue-tied there. Shane, Scott the Canadian, and just all of you. Thank you guys, and my buddy Ben as well. Thank you guys for watching so much, and I'll see you all later.